Because of a lightning storm during filming this episode, about 20 minutes of our interview was cut off. Sorry about that, but these last 35 minutes of this interview is very, very inspirational, motivational, and enlightening. Stay tuned. Listen to my man Donald Fitzgerald and his principles of winning.
Or you were also, in the dairy case that you were working. I wanted everything to look perfect. Again, not to be a hero, but to avoid being embarrassed. And I think over time, as you work on those disciplines, and then you begin to realize, well, that introversion has kind of created a strength now in me that I can leverage. That being prepared, more prepared. Well, life in a lot of ways, there's a lot of competition, right? And that preparedness, discipline helped me maybe differentiate myself a little bit from others who didn't, have that in their DNA. And it only came because I was trying to compensate for this weakness of introversion and preparation. It's still today, I still, in this, we're having a conversation. I probably overthought this whole thing here. Embarrass myself to you, but it helps you then hone your craft.
So if you was giving somebody advice, right, and you seen that they were struggling with something that they perceived as a weakness, how would you instruct them, coach them to change that weakness into a strength?
Yeah. I guess I would probably ask them to step back and look at that and say, is that a complete weakness, or is there something in there that, you can just reframe in the way you look at, or the way the way that affects you, that helps you become stronger in another way. Right. So it's like, how can I, it's like working out physically, right? If I'm weak in a particular place, how can I hone, or what can I do differently to turn that into a strength? And, in some cases, there's some things that are pure weaknesses and it's a weakness, but I think it's stepping back. You and I might have talked about too, like introversion gives you the opportunity to think more deep.
Self-reflect.
Yeah, exactly. Jump out there with that. Right. So if it was me talking to my younger self, it's like, okay, Don, well, okay, so you're not the loudest voice in the room, or you're not the comedian in the room, but you do have the ability to step back and think, and when you speak, you're going to say something more profound than the first thing out of your mouth. So it's probably, I would say, just ask them to step back, Des, and take a look at it and reframing it. Is there another way to um, turn that so that it can become a strength for you?
A shepherd should smell like his sheep.
Yeah, everybody won't like that one, but for me, it works, right? And it kind of is a build on taking interest in people. And I, I think there's so much credibility to rolling up your sleeves, getting in the trenches, working along with folks to uh, have them realize that you're a person too, right? And that I'm in this with you. I'm shoulder to shoulder. And if you get in there and you have a hard day's work and you're out there tending the sheep with the rest, then I think again, it starts to build that credibility with the team versus just standing off to the side. And that's kind of worked for me. And I think that it's just, I've seen it time and time again where you do a little dirty work, and the team comes back. Hey, again, hey, Fitz, how you want to
Yeah.
go in the back room with me again? And it creates a personal connection that when the going gets tough, or you really need the team to go to the next level, or we gotta, hey, we didn't achieve that, but we got to go the next level or try that again. Well, they know you're going to be in there fighting for it just like them, like not like go out there and fight, guys, and let me know how it goes. I'm here with you, right? So I think
Yep.
that's really important.
No, I want to add to that. When I played ball, my worst coach was a guy who had never played ball before, and my best coach was a guy who had played ball before. And I believe the reason why he was better able to relate is because he had done it.
Yep.
And so I owned a music studio, and we used to do a lot of rap, R&B, and I owned a record label for a while. And so the one thing that I would do every now and again, I would go to the studio sessions, I would rap, I would write, and I would go in and record. Not
Yep.
that I wanted to put out a record or anything like that. I only did it so that I could gain and keep the respect of the artist, so
Yep.
they can see that, oh, he can do this too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now when I wanted to have some input, say, hey man, I think you should say that a little bit different, or if you put this here or take this out, now they can say, okay, the dude knows what he's talking about because I've seen him in the trenches with us. So
Yeah.
gaining that respect in that way.
Yeah, and I think that that it probably embedded in these principles is some humility and being humble a bit too. Like it makes me, I know it makes the younger guys and women laugh when I'm in there like trying to put stock on the shelf like them, and they're going a mile a minute, and here's the the older guy who's going, but it's a little self-deprecation, but
Right.
again, it creates that connection with the team.
Right.
So.
But they come back and say, hey, Mr. Dunn, watch out. we got this.
We're still on that same page. Come up.
Yeah. We appreciate the effort, but we got this.
We'll roll now. But it just creates again that you never know where you're going to need that then to go back and talk to the team. And you created that bond, like you're saying with the coach, that connection. There's an understanding. You walked in my shoes. You get it.
Right. So tell me, as you're going into this grocery retail space, right? You didn't start out at the C level, right? You work with a bunch of different companies, but when you were starting to grow into this industry, give me one of these principles and an experience that you had with one of these principles that helped to accelerate you up the ladder, so to speak.
Yeah, and I'm going to use a football analogy, not just because it's you, but it's the facts, right? So, like, this whole idea of making choices, sacrifices, or trade-offs that you need, and the only easy day was yesterday. Making these choices. Uh, we all were in our Bear fans, and we watched the game on Sunday, and everyone would want to come in on Monday morning to the office and sit around and digest the game for an hour, right? Which is great. I loved it. I loved watching the game. But for me, Des was like, I had to make a choice there that I wanted to, and maybe it's still rooted in, I want to make sure I have my homework done and but I would have a little quick conversation. Yeah, that was great. Glad the Bears won. Glad Des made that catch. Whatever it might have been. But then I had to make a choice to not spend another half hour, 45 minutes talking and kibitzing and reliving the game. I'm here to do a job. I want to be successful in my job. And there's others that I would look at who would spend an hour just spent talking and losing productive time to start their week. So a small example, but it would be easy. And sometimes, people, well, Don can't hang around and talk to us about the game anymore. Well, I was setting my priorities. I was making my choices. I had a family that I wanted to provide for. Not that they didn't, but for me, that was the priority, and I had to make that choice as opposed to standing around, chatting about it for
Right.
longer.
So, Don, I put out actually, I did a recording. I don't even know if I put out the video yet, but I had something on my mind yesterday when, because I see this not often, but sometimes when people carry themselves at a high standard, right? As you had started to do, I see times where their friends or their colleagues would almost make them feel like, man, I should apologize because I have high standards. Like you said, Dunn's too good to hang out.
Yep.
Did you feel that when you said, "Hey, I'm making a choice to keep my standards here, so I have to move on"? Did you feel some of that? The word that I'm thinking about is ridicule, or almost like the guys want me to apologize for wanting to do the right thing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, Des. As I'm thinking about it here as we talk about it, another one would just be the choice to continue to pursue my education, right? So there a lot of folks in the grocery industry back in the day did not pursue their education, which is fine. But for me, that was important as a lifelong learner, as I would call myself, to stay in night school, weekend school, make these choices to go. And, a lot of other folks would be going and playing softball. You going to join us tonight? No, I'm going to school. I'm going to do my homework. And there's almost like, oh, wow, like, oh, okay, fine. You're too good for us. You can't play softball tonight. You've got to go to school. And that's hard. That's hard. That can be hard, but you've got to continue to focus on what you're looking to achieve. And to be sure, I enjoy socializing. It's part of my introversion. I enjoy softball, but that's a choice that I had to make to get to where I wanted to be. And you're right, if folks may verbalize it or they may not, Des, but they're kind of looking like, oh, so he thinks he's better than me, and can't come to the game. No, I was simply making a choice for what was important to me in my career.
I was counting how many times you said choice. I lost count at some point, but you said choice probably 10 times, almost
Yeah.
10 times in the last 5 minutes or so. My question to you is, do you, at the simplest level, like everybody has things that goes on, but is success as simple as a choice?
No, it's not that simple. I think it's something. It's a pillar in terms of success, right? That you've got to make a choice time and time again of what you think is going to lead you to success, and making that choice, be good with that choice, and then give it your all. And it may not always work out, but I think it's one of the key pillars to success, Des. But not the only thing, right? I got to make a choice. I made that decision, and now I've got to do everything I can to make that um, be the right choice. Be the right
Mhm.
choice. Yep.
That's one pillar. What would you say some of the other pillars may be? And you don't have to give us an exhaustive list of everything, but for you, fits in your life, hey, choice was one of those pillars. What are
Yep.
some of the other pillars that you say that help make you successful and you think are universal pillars for everyone?
Yeah. I mean, I think hard work, there's just no way to get around it. And we can all define hard work
Hmm.
differently. That changes, work life balance, expectations have changed. But I think in the end, working hard, and from what you've done as well, you've got to put in the work if you want to really be successful. So I think that has been critical. Sure, there's some quote overnight success stories, but as well as I do, the people that are successful have put in a lot of work to get there. I think passion is the other thing too, Des, is finding what really sort of excites you and you want to do. And it's kind of the flywheel effect, right? It's like if I'm excited about it, I do something, that works. I get more excited, and it continues to build. So I'd say hard work, passion, and then just being a little humble. Being a little humble and some humility, right? And understand. Well, one of the things you talked about was the network, and that's been very successful in my life, is having a network of a lot of those things you talked about: empathetic listeners and comedians and supporters, and so I think having that professional network that can give you that feedback in a safe space, I think is really important. Because if you're a successful, driven person, you may not want always hear that feedback. But if you've got that network, say, hey, Don, we're in this together. I love you, man, but here's a couple things I think you could think about working on, or what you might do. So those would be, I think, some of the other factors.
Let's go back to humble for a minute, because that's a word that we hear all the time, and I
Yep.
feel like I'm a very humble guy, right? But even going back to high school and in college, my outside, like what I was feeling here, like I need to be better than you,
Yep.
right? I need, and not, and I'm talking about high school, because I felt like if I'm going to get only way I'm going to go to college is get an athletic scholarship. So that's why I felt like I had to be better than the next man, not as a person, but just as an athlete to get that scholarship. When I got to college, I wanted to kick everybody's ass. Like, but I never really said it didn't come out that way. It was this internal passion that I developed for wanting to be the best, be considered as, hey, if I'm the receiver on the team, I want to be the best receiver on the team. Who is the best receiver on the team? Okay, I got to be better than that guy. I got to not only be better than him, I got to go and learn from him also.
Right.
So, but it was always a thing that I wanted to bring everybody else up with me, and help everybody else be good, as other people were helping me be good, and doing the right things for myself and
Yep.
for other people at the same time. So when I think about being humble, I don't, some people think about, well, you got to kind of shrink, you
Yeah.
know, I never thought about it like that. I thought about it as, let me expand, but let me do the right thing for everybody else too. So that's kind of how I see humble. How do you see humble?
Yeah, I think what you just said there. I think that he's the best receiver on the team, to be a bit humble in the humility to go ask them to give me some feedback. That's not weak or shrink. That's actually a strength. And this is kind of maybe like what you were talking about before, when somebody might perceive being humble or have some humility as a weakness. You
Mm-hmm.
could repivot that and let's reframe that. You're open to getting that feedback. You go through life, and I am not going to tell Don, because he's going to get an attitude right away. You miss so much feedback along the way. So I think that example of reaching out to the other receiver and being humble and humility, I think is one of the ways. I also think about it as uh, an approachability, that this humbleness or humility in leadership. Um, you hear about servant leadership, you hear about EQ. I really think there is a lot to being slightly humble or have some humility. That, again, in my case, that as a senior leader in a multi-billion-dollar organization, that somebody can run up to you and say, hey, Fitz, and they feel like you're approachable. I think that there's nothing wrong with that, having a little, showing that humble vulnerability, humility. Not that I'm weak, but hey, I don't know everything, right?
Right.
And you're here every day, and you're talking to our customers. What are they saying? If you're not a little humble to hear that, like, I got all the answers, um, I think you miss so much, Des. So I think I would agree with you. It's not like this shrinking violet, I'm humble sitting in the corner, but
Mm-hmm.
It's being open to feedback, people connecting you. Hey, they're a real person. I can talk to them, give them my feedback. It
Absolutely.
and that benefit back to that individual. You made their day, their week, their month, possibly. They sit around the table. The senior executive was in it. I got to tell him this. Wow, what a place to work. What
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah.
I recently had this happen to me. A friend of mine, go way back to like elementary school, but no, yeah, elementary school. But we were in middle school on a middle school football team, and we called it junior high down here back then. And this was just last week. I get this voicemail. I mean, this message on Facebook, and the first thing that he says, like, I got to tell you this story. I thought that you was the biggest asshole back in high school. I mean, back in junior high. He was like, but what I didn't realize is that you was trying to get me better. He said, you probably don't even remember this. I was playing center at the time for the football team, and he was a backup nose guard, and he said that I would always tell him like, you can't get past me, and then I would stop him, and I was tell him, because your feet are already pointed that way, I know where you're going. And then he said he would try to change it up, and then I would say, nope, you can't get past me because you showing this. And then he said he used to get so mad because I used to always be like, really just coaching him. And then he
Yep.
said he finally beat me one day. And then I was like, it don't matter that you beat me because the ball is way over there.
Right.
So yeah, you got past me. But and he held that in all of middle school. And
Yep.
then he said we got to high school on the JV. I was a quarterback. He was a receiver. And we were actually working together. He was like, it wasn't until that time that he realized this man was, or a boy at the time, was trying to actually help me by showing me what I was doing wrong, and he was taking it the wrong way. And I let my wife hear that, and she was like, "Yeah, I think a lot of people see you as a butthole at the beginning, but then as they hang around you enough, they see that you mean well, but you're so honest and truthful with people that sometimes that honesty and truth hurts." And she was like, and you know me, I never thought that. I was like, you was the main one that thought that a few years ago. But talk about your leadership style. How do you relate to the people that you have to lead, and how does some of these principles that you live by come in play to help other people become better?
Yeah. I probably uh, where I would start is that if you're a leader, people are looking at you as their leader, and you've got to understand that and take it seriously, right? I've worked for folks who are at some points who are designated as the leader, but didn't carry themselves. And again, let's reference to the conversation we just had. There's humility, but you need to show leadership. One of the things that's here when you in command, you have to command and lead because people are looking at you. And I think, I've always been serious about that. I can joke, I can have a sense of humor, but you're looking to me to lead this organization. You're looking for me to identify others on the team who aren't carrying their weight necessarily. So I think having that uh, seriousness, setting the tone as a leader, setting the expectation. That's the other thing I think. So yourself setting those expectations of leadership for yourself, and then also, I people say firm but fair or whatever the cliche might be, but setting expectations of folks and letting them know what you're expecting, good for the organization and good for themselves. I think sometimes leaders might be afraid to be open and transparent with the folks they're leading, and it's an injustice, frankly, to them if you're not shooting straight. Like your example there with the nose guard, right? You're shooting straight, but it's for his benefit, and you're in. And same thing in business. I've got to set expectations. Here's what we're trying to achieve. Now, if you've built that trust we talked about, we can have a conversation, right? Like, gosh, that's a really high goal. Um, I don't know if I, however somebody might say it, I don't know, I have concerns about getting there. Well, but you have that trust as opposed to the, you know, domineering style. This is the goal. I don't want to hear about it. See you when it's, well, no, here's what it is. I set a high goal. So I think setting expectations, people, letting them know what your expectations are, and not being afraid, frankly, Des, to give feedback along the way that here's how I'm kind of seeing it. It's just fair to the individual to have that sort of ongoing dialogue. So, expectations of myself, expectations of the team, and yeah, and then like we've talked, just concern about their own welfare, right? How because uh, I don't know who said this. I always screw up the saying, but like, how are you going to win if you're not right within, right? So if an individual isn't right inside, as a leader, you've kind of got to get a sense of that. Like, what's going on here, right? I set expectations for myself. I've set expectations for you. We've discussed it. Like, is something going on there, right? And I think as leaders, if they're going to win for themselves and there you can't get into everybody's business necessarily, but is there something there going on that I as a leader might be able to help with? Or frankly, I said about an empathetic listener. Well, let's just talk about what's going on. I can't solve it for you, but getting it off your chest might help this individual. I think I lost the audio.
Put myself on mute because it is lightning outside and I didn't want that to get in here. So thank you for that. So Lauren Hill, she's a singer from the Fugees. She said, "How you gonna win if you're not right within?"
So
That was
I was going to screw it up, I know, but that is where it came from. And I had a younger individual who told me that. She said, "Don, how are you going to win if it's not right within?" And like, I'm like, where'd that come? And it was so appropriate. So yeah,
that's where it came from.
That's exactly
Oh,
right.
okay. I
Her
thought maybe somebody said it first and then she
no,
put it in a song.
her name was Sierra, and in that trust place, she knew something was right. Don, like what's wrong? You know, she's like, Don, how are you going to win if you're not right within? So
I love it.
that's a milestone, Des. I got it right.
I love it. So I would love your perspective on this right here. As a leader, I believe as a leader, you have to be the thermostat and not the thermometer. Let me break that down for you. So at the thermometer, you have to check everybody's temperature like individually, like
Yep.
with the thermometer. A thermostat, you set the temperature, right, for the entire room.
Yep.
So when you hear that, hey, as a leader, you have to be the thermostat and not a thermometer. What are your perspectives on that?
Yeah. Is that an original? Is that an original from you?
It's not original. Everything that I have, I stole from somewhere.
Well, I love it. I think it's great. It sort of like we were talking about setting those expectations of the team, setting that temperature in the room. That's excellent, right? So this is the temperature level. I think again, if somebody's checking their own temp and they can't get there, then what's going on? But I really love that idea of setting that temperature. Here's where we're at, and hey, in life and in business, sometimes the temp can be mediocre. Sometimes you got to turn the temp up, right? It's just
Yeah.
the realities of it, and it's not, And that's the other thing as a leader, you've got to think about. I have the welfare of a lot of people, right? And sometimes for the good, the greater good of the organization or the greater good of people. To your point, I have to turn that temperature up. Everybody might not be able to raise their temperature to that level, but this is what needs to happen. And that's sort of the intestinal fortitude a leader has to have. That's a choice again, like we were talking about. I have to turn it up. Not everybody can make it, but for the greater good, I have to raise to that level. I mean, if you're going to be a championship team, I got to raise that level. Everybody might not be able to get there, but we got to push. And and I think you care about I've always cared about the individual, but an organization is supporting a lot of people, and if this person can't raise to that level, then that's another conversation, frankly, because it's the greater good.
And you answer that perfectly for my setup. So this is my last question for you, Fitz. As a leader, right? Can you always do what's right and do what's fair? Can they always coincide with each other?
I would say I would
Or,
go.
hold on, and let me throw a little nuance in there too. And if you can't do both, which one would you tend to lean to?
I think I'd have to go back to one of the folks I follow or steal my stuff from, Lou Holtz. It's Lou's never a wrong time to do the right thing, and I think if you do the right thing that you believe is the right thing, now somebody might not think that was fair to them, but
Mm-hmm.
I think that doing the right thing for the situation is what I would say the way to play the game of life, right? Do the right thing. Um, it may not always work for everybody. It may be tough to do that right thing, Des, but I think and people will perceive fair and unfair. But I think if you're doing the right thing, there is a fairness, right, in that because you're doing it for the right reasons. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the right answer, but for me, never a wrong time to do the right thing, whether that's in business or life, because I think that keeps you on the straight and narrow. Yeah.
Right. And I agree. So my brother taught me this. He said fair is something that you pay to get on the bus. There's no such thing as fair, right?
Yeah.
Because if it was a such thing as fair, everybody will be equal.
Yep.
We're not all equal. We weren't born the same. Some people have advantages, disadvantages. So there's really no such thing as fair. Is it fair that hey, I could get myself in the door because I played football with the Chicago Bears at this company, but a guy may be busting his ass,
Yep.
and probably can do a better service than I can, but he can't get in the door. That's not fair, right? So he just taught me to eliminate fair.
Yeah.
Just do what's right. And then it goes back to if you have the trust of the people that you have to make the right decisions for as a leader, then it'll all work out. Because if you have the trust, people will say, man, like, yeah, I'm getting the short end of the stick here, but I know who you are as a person, and I could understand why you had to make that decision.
And there's been times in my career where you've made the right decision and been unfair to a particular people in their mind, but they'll come back to you and say, "I understand why you had to make that decision," and they
Right.
respect for that. And you have conversations, later in life where you thought, "Oh gosh, they're going to burn me off forever," but they realize that was the right decision to make, even though it didn't seem particularly fair to me. It was the right decision. Yeah.
Absolutely. Hey, did we miss anything? Did we leave anything out? Any last words from you?
Um, I would just say that, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to try to pay a little bit forward for what I think I've learned over my life, and people have poured bits into me, little drops into me, and paid it forward. And I think that, even though that sounds cliche, there is so much benefit sharing with folks, and what you're doing here, allowing that to happen. I just commend and thank you for that. Yeah.
And I appreciate you coming on, sharing your stories, sharing your principles of winning. We I really believe that, like you said, success has a lot to do with choices, right? We can make the choice that we want to be successful, then we got to go and execute a lot of other elements to those choices that we make, right? And I believe it's out here for everyone to have. And these type of conversations, I think, will help people to realize you didn't say anything while we've been here that no one else can't do.
Yeah.
You didn't say anything about you have a superhero power. You don't have X-ray vision. You don't have all the Batman gadgets. You don't have any of that. You had the wherewithal and the will to make great choices, execute on the things that you need to execute on, balance your time well, use your time well, did all of these little core things. And over time, you develop success from that. And that's what success is in my book.
Yes, I hear you, and not knowing where that end is either. Sometimes it going gets tough, right? And you don't know what success is or where, but you've got to keep pursuing and pushing and growing yourself and learning every day.
Last thing is defining it for yourself also. There's so many definitions of success. Define the success for yourself. Don't let success be dictated to you of what it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to look, any of that. We all have our own definitions. My level of success is not Elon Musk's level of success. And my level of success is not somebody in high school level of success right now. You know, there's different levels. You choose your success and you work on building yourself to those capabilities so you can recognize your own success. Fitz, I appreciate you coming on, man. Hey, this has been a great interview, and I'm sure that a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this. This is Principles of Winning. Every Wednesday, come check us out. Every Wednesday, 12 noon, we drop another episode, and we will be dropping another episode this Wednesday. I love you guys. Keep winning.